The words you are about to hear were personally researched and written by me to uncover the deepest truths behind the legend. Berlin, July 9th, 2006. The world had held its breath to touch the gold, but I was preparing for the longest and most silent walk of my entire life. And they only showed you a single headbutt, a flash of violence in the heat of a final. But they never told you that in those few seconds I was reliving the explosion of 34 years of accumulated struggle, racial tension, and hidden pain. To understand that moment in Berlin, you must first walk with me through the concrete labyrinth of La Castellane in Marseille, where being the son of Algerian immigrants meant you had to fight twice as hard just to be seen as half as good. Football was never just a game for me. It was a silent prayer, a desperate escape from the shadows of poverty and the cold stares of a world that didn't want me to belong. Every touch of the ball was a word in a language I couldn't speak aloud, a way to prove that a boy with nothing could possess the grace of a king. My career was supposed to end with a kiss on the World Cup trophy under the starry Berlin sky, a final embrace with the game that took me from the dusty streets of my youth to the golden hollow lights of Turin and Madrid. But instead, it ended with a storm of fire in my blood and a silence so heavy it shook the foundations of the football world forever. You see, for a man to transcend his limits and become a god in the eyes of millions, he must first learn how to kill the human within him. But on that night, after 2 decades of wearing masks and playing the part of the stoic genius, I chose to let the human live and let the legend burn to the ground. They told you that I lost my cool, that I was a master who suddenly surrendered to a moment of madness or a fragile ego, but they never heard the words that tore through my soul like a jagged poisoned blade in those final suffocating minutes of my professional existence. Standing on that pitch, surrounded by the blinding lights of the Olympia Stadion and the gaze of billions, I wasn't just a world-famous athlete anymore. I was a son whose mother was ailing in a hospital bed back home, a brother whose family blood was being insulted by a predator hiding behind a blue jersey, and a man who remembered that his father's pride was worth more than any stadium's applause. Marco Materazzi's words weren't just common trash talk or the typical psychological warfare of a desperate defender. They were calculated, poisonous arrows aimed directly at the heart of the women who gave me life and the strength to stand tall against every injustice I faced since I was a child. In that split second, the roar of 60,000 people vanished into a haunting, absolute void where time stood still. The green grass beneath my feet felt like the burning pavement of Marseille, and all I could hear was the frantic heartbeat of that little boy who was taught that family is the only thing you truly own in this world. When I lowered my head and struck that blow, I wasn't just hitting a man named Materazzi. I was shattering the disrespect of every person who thought they could use my silence as a weakness, every person who thought they could insult my roots and get away with it. I saw the red card rise like a funeral flag for my career. A final judgment passed by a world that values the rules of a game over the laws of the soul. As I walked away, feeling the cold, judgmental weight of the entire world's gaze on my back, I passed that World Cup trophy, a golden ghost of what could have been, and I didn't look back once, not even for a second, because at that moment I felt a strange, terrifying, and beautiful peace for choosing my blood over a piece of polished metal. They call it a tragedy, a fall from grace, a stain on a legendary legacy that can never be washed away by time. But for me, it was the only way to remain a human being in a cold, commercial world that wanted me to be nothing more than a silent scoring machine to be sold and traded. Do you know what I whispered to myself as I entered that dark, silent tunnel for the very last time, leaving the lights, the noise, and the cameras behind forever? I told myself that legends are not defined by the weight of the trophies they lift or the number of medals they wear around their necks, but by the invisible lines they refuse to let anyone cross, even at the cost of their own immortality. I am Zinedine Zidane, the son of Smail and Malika, and on that night in Berlin, I didn't lose the World Cup. I saved my soul from the eternal silence of a coward who allows his honor to be sold for a trophy. Even now, nearly 20 years later, When the world still whispers my name with a mix of awe and confusion, I would choose that red card 1,000 times over to protect the truth of who I am. Because a king without honor is just a man in a costume, and some things in this life are worth much more than being remembered as a winner. This is the archive they tried to bury under statistics and highlights, the story of the man who walked away from a throne to keep his soul intact. And as the lights go out on this final chapter, ask yourself, what is the price of your silence when your world is on the line, and would you have the courage to walk into the dark to save the light within you?